jobs. You know, people needed to know what his future was. So he took some early time to get medical evaluations that might normally take another week or two, and he was comfortable. And I've had dialogue with him for now 3 or 4 days. I always felt good about it, but he never committed. So to get a phone call, was it yesterday? Well, actually, we did the release yesterday. So what's today? Today is Friday. Right. So to get a phone call on Wednesday night from him, it was not completely out of the blue, but certainly, it felt good to know that he's coming back, and that's, for the organization, it's a huge plus. And in terms of stability, looking for another coach, looking for assistance, at a very important time of the year, it's comforting to know that's something we don't have to do.
When you got the phone call and it was that soon, did you get nervous at first before he started telling you what he was going to do?
No, like I said, I've had dialogue with him before he left, and once or twice, in Montana, talking about assistant coaches, giving updates on our players, prospective players, the assistant coaches, Brian Shaw, with the Cleveland opportunity. I always felt as if he was engaged, because you could tell if someone's really, not going to come back, that they're really not engaged in, future decisions for an organization. So I felt as if he was engaged, and I always felt good about, where we were. But, my opinion was, most of his decision hinged on medical evaluation. So if he got a phone call from a doctor, no matter how our conversations were going, it could have done a 180 pretty quick.
You seemed pretty confident when you talked to us that this is ultimately the way it would turn out anyway.
He seemed?
You seemed.
You did.
Yeah, well, I felt all along that this is an opportunity that coaches love to have. This is a team that can continue to compete at a high level, for several years. I don't think Phil's looking at it that way. I think, like most coaches, they look towards next year. And most coaches go game to game, but the season's over, so what they do is they look at next year. That's as far in advance as they can go. And I think he's obviously comfortable with the team. He's got a great, I think, relationship with the organization. We all work well together. His staff is intact. There won't be many major changes to the team. So I'm not that surprised that this is what his decision has been.
Do you have a time frame that you expect to be able to reach a contract with him?
I don't anticipate any problems. Quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's done within a week. Okay. Sooner.
It's one of those situations where if he's going to come back, everybody's sort of on the same page to begin with, or else he wouldn't make that kind of announcement.
Yeah, we've had some dialogue with his representative today. I don't see any problems. There always could be a problem until you get a signature, but I don't anticipate problems. The organization, and Phil and his representatives, it's always been very amicable, and we've always been able to work things out.
Is this definitely going to be his last season?
It's a question for him. It sounds as if that's what he's decided. But I'm happy to have him back this year, and maybe a year from now we're going through the same type of a decision-making process. It doesn't sound that way. It sounds like he's made his mind up, but that's something to discuss down the road.
Is it easier for you guys if you do have an indication that this will be his last year in terms of trying to set up all those things you talked about in terms of coaching changes and assistants and all that for the following season, if you know he's...
Not really. Not really. Because we still have to, go through the process. It's not like you can pick a coach today for a team next year. You don't know what happens during the course of the season. You don't know who's going to be available. There could be, anything can take place in the next 12 months. So, what we'll do is a year from now, we'll sit down and certainly we'll have more of a list than we had this year. Because I always felt that he would come back this year. So we'll have a year to think about it. So in that regard, it might be different. But there'll still be a process a year from now where you interview, talk to coaches, and make a decision.
What can be read into Brian's decision to come back for another year and with the Phils seeming to say this will be my last year?
Well, I've talked to Brian several times, and if you listen to some of his radio bites, he describes it pretty accurately. He just wasn't ready to make a decision on a time frame that was imposed on him from another team. A year from now, would Brian be a candidate to coach this team? Absolutely. But other than that, there is nothing else to read into it.
You would not do what some college and pro teams have done and name the next coach a year or two in advance.
That's not something that we have interest in doing.